body of Nirvana leader Kurt Cobain was found in a house in Seattle on Friday morning, dead of an apparently self-inflicted shotgun blast to the head. Police found what is said to be a suicide note at the scene, but have not yet divulged its contents.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Between the Facts, our new 6-part series looking at 6 famous cases, looking at the life, the death, and the conspiracies surrounding each one.
Kurt Cobain was born on February the 20th, 1967, in Aberdeen, Washington. It's a small logging town about 100 miles southwest of Seattle. His early life was marked with both artistic talent and personal struggles. From a young age, Cobain showed an interest in music and art. He grew up in a household where music played a significant role, with influences ranging from the Beatles to Led Zeppelin. However, his childhood was also turbulent. His parents' divorce when he was aged 9 had a lasting effect on him, leading to feelings of isolation and emotional distress, themes that would later be reflected in his songwriting.
Wouldn't it just? Isn't that crazy that it's so obvious when we can zoom out and look back a little bit. We can see where some of those lyrics originated from.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Cobain's teenage years were marked by rebellion and a growing disillusionment with mainstream culture. He moved between homes, living with friends and relatives, while continuing to nurture his love for music. During high school, Cobain discovered punk rock, a genre that resonated deeply with his feelings of alienation and dissatisfaction with societal norms. Bands like the Melvins, Black Flag, and the Sex Pistols became pivotal in shaping his musical direction. He spent countless hours listening to records and teaching himself to play guitar, blending his punk influences with the raw energy of the emerging alternative rock scene in the Pacific Northwest.
And I've got to say, just like Kurt Cobain, Black Flag, what a band. What a band.
Henry Rollins.
Oh, I love him. I saw, and I know we aside for a second, but I saw Henry Rollins talking on the Howard Stern show. I think it's a few years ago. And he's talking about Sting. And I won't paraphrase it here because this isn't the audience for it. But I would definitely say to anybody that has an inkling towards Henry Rollins as a poet, as a musician, go and look up his appearance on Howard Stern. It is hilarious. It's completely unfiltered, and it's everything that everybody really wants to say about Sting, but is too scared to say.
Surely that's a book. Everything you wanted to say about Sting, but were too afraid to say.
I'd buy it.
In 1987, Cobain formed Nirvana with bassist Chris Novoselic. The duo initially cycled through several drummers before settling on Chad Channing and later Dave Grohl. Nirvana began performing in small venues across the Seattle area, developing a sound that mixed heavy distortion, melodic hooks, and Cobain's anguished, gravelly vocals. By 1989, the band had released their debut album Bleach under the independent label Sub Pop. Though the album received only modest attention, it helped establish the band within the underground scene and earn them a small but dedicated following. The turning point for Cobain and Nirvana came with their second album, Nevermind, released in 1991. By this time, Dave Grohl had joined the band, providing a more powerful, dynamic drumming style that elevated their sound. The album's first single, Smells Like Teen Spirit, unexpectedly became a massive hit, catapulting the band to international fame. The success of Nevermind is often credited with bringing the grunge movement and alternative rock into the mainstream, effectively reshaping the landscape of popular music in the early 1990s.
And I don't think anyone can argue with that, can they?
God, no.
I think Nevermind and Nirvana is the Nevermind the Bollocks and the Sex Pistols for that generation.
I remember when that album came out and the state of music before that, but it was just like, it was like a bomb had gone off in the music scene because there hadn't been anything mainstream like that before. I mean, you're looking at the time of Guns N' Roses were being big and Skid Row, big hair rock. Overproduced, over elaborate hair rock was the thing. And then in come this band that just blew it apart.
Yeah, I wasn't overly aware of the birth of grunge. Did it just happen, or Was it something that came in kind of gradually, or is it just all of a sudden there's this new thing?
I just remember. I think if I'd probably been a bit older, there would have been rumblings of a scene. I don't think you would call it grunge. You just call it alternative,
Yeah.
alternative music. But when that opening of down, down, it was like, whoa, what the hell is this? And everyone took notice.
Yeah.
And then the corporate machine gets involved in it, and it becomes grunge because they go, A&R scouts go to Seattle and just pick anyone and everyone, and suddenly you've got this thing called grunge. Is it grunge? It was only called grunge because of the fashion that people were wearing.
Yeah, because that's what happened, wasn't it? Quite quickly, and it was the same with punk. That you had that burst of new energy, of new music and new bands, but they had to have a uniform to give them that visual identity for when their music wasn't around. And it quickly became the long hair, the loose-fitting check shirts, the ripped jeans.
Flannel, so much flannel.
Yeah, whereas with punk it became safety pins, zips, spiky hair.
Cobain's songwriting, characterized by its introspective and often dark themes, captured the frustrations and alienation of a generation. His raw, confessional lyrics, paired with Nirvana's signature blend of punk energy and melodic sensibilities, struck a chord with young audiences. The band's rise to prominence also challenged the slick, overproduced music that dominated the late 1980s, bringing a rawer, more authentic sound to the forefront of popular culture. Cobain, however, struggled with the pressures of fame. He became increasingly uncomfortable with the media's focus on him and the commodification of his music. Despite his ambivalence about his success, Kurt Cobain's influence on music and culture was profound. Nirvana's success opened the door for other grunge and alternative bands like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains, and Cobain himself became an emblem for Generation X's disillusionment. Cobain's early life, from his tumultuous childhood to his formation of Nirvana, played a pivotal role in shaping both his music and the broader musical landscape of the early 1990s. His legacy as a cultural icon continues to resonate, with his music still influencing artists across genres today.
On April 8, 1994, the world was rocked by the tragic discovery of Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain's lifeless body in his Seattle home. Cobain, just 27 years old, was the voice of a generation, a reluctant icon who transformed the musical landscape. But behind the fame and success lay a troubled soul. In early 1994, Cobain's struggles had intensified. He battled heroin addiction, chronic health issues, and mental health problems, all of which were well documented by the media. His erratic behaviour in public, such as cancelling shows, caused concern amongst fans and those closest to him. In March of that year, Cobain's downward spiral became evident when he overdosed on champagne and Rohypnol in Rome during a European tour. While initially reported as an accident, several news outlets, including the New York Times, hinted at possible suicidal intent. On April 8, 1994, Cobain's body was found by an electrician in the greenhouse above his garage. The initial police report, as published in the Seattle Times, indicated Cobain had died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Next to his body was a suicide note addressed to his wife Courtney Love and their daughter Frances Bean. The note expressed Cobain's despair and his sense of detachment from the world. Cobain's death sent shockwaves through the music world and beyond. Magazines like Rolling Stone and Spin published lengthy tributes, examining his impact on music and culture. His suicide also prompted intense media scrutiny on his personal life. Tabloids and newspapers speculated on Cobain's relationship with Courtney Love, questioning whether the pressures of fame, addiction, and their volatile relationship contributed to his death. Love was quoted as saying, "I'm sorry for everyone he let down. I'm sorry for Francis, and I'm sorry for myself. I'll never know what he was thinking in those final days." The suicide note left behind has been a source of intrigue for many. In it, Cobain wrote, "I don't have the passion anymore, and so remember, it's better to burn out than to fade away." These words echoed Neil Young's lyrics, which many interpreted as Cobain's farewell to the world. Reports from the Seattle Police Department, which were later made public, affirmed that Cobain had been dead for 3 days before his body was discovered. Despite the official ruling of suicide, Cobain's death has been shrouded in speculation and conspiracy theories. Some fans and independent investigators, notably journalist Richard Lee and filmmaker Nick Broomfield, have questioned the circumstances of his death, citing inconsistencies in the police report. These suspicions were further fueled by books such as Love and Death, The Murder of Kurt Cobain by Max Wallace and Ian Halperin, which posited that foul play may have been involved. Despite the controversies, Cobain's legacy endures. His death was a devastating loss to his fans, but it solidified his status as an icon of rock music and a symbol of the tortured artist. His final years were a tragic testament to the dangers of addiction, mental illness, and the pressures of fame. Cobain's story, filled with talent, fame, and tragedy, has been extensively covered by the media over the years. In 2014, Rolling Stone revisited the case on the 20th anniversary of his death, underscoring his continued influence on music and popular culture. Books like Heavier Than Heaven by Charles R. Cross and Come As You Are by Michael Azerrad have provided deeper insights into his life, while documentaries like A Montage of Heck have explored his inner turmoil through Cobain's own journals, artwork, and music. Cobain's death remains one of the most heartbreaking moments in rock history. Though his life was tragically cut short, his music continues to resonate with new generations. In the end, Cobain's legacy is not defined by how he died, but how he lived and the music he left behind. So when you think back then, I remember seeing the news flash up that he died, and my instant feeling of it was, Christ, he was young.
I mean, we're going back to a time before social media. But you didn't find out anything quickly. You found it out through MTV News, Kurt Loder.
Yeah.
People talking, etc. And I can't remember exactly how I found out. But as a 14-year-old, 14, 15, I just my world fell apart because I thought Nirvana were just the best thing in the world ever. I had them on repeat all the time.
Yeah.
And they were a huge part of my musical upbringing. So when I found out he had died, my entire world at that point just fell apart because my hero, yes, you move all his drug habits, etc. apart. But to me, the music, his singing, the output meant everything to me. And to find that my hero, the man that wrote those songs, and I wanted to play guitar like, I wanted to write songs like him, that had gone. And I was just like, crap. Oh my God. I just don't know what to do with myself. And I just remember getting all the newspapers, magazines I could, and just filtering through all the information.
It's a strange way to start this sentence, but bear with me. He's kind of fortunate he died when he did, because, as you've said, it was pre-social media. We've just seen the recent passing of Liam Payne from One Direction, and there has been some really unsightly coverage of his passing, including a website called TMZ publishing photographs of his body. And I know there is that one famous shot through the window where you can see
you see the body laid out.
Yeah.
You don't see.
No, you see particularly a leg.
Sort of midriff down to the legs.
Yeah, but you can imagine if that had happened today, how social media would have responded, and I'm convinced it would have been a wholly negative experience. I don't think Nirvana could exist in the age of social media, because so much of the brand of a band is about social media interactions now. Some bands, it's not so much about the music, it's about how many likes and hits they get. And I just don't think Nirvana could exist in this world now, because there's no band out there that are like Nirvana now.
No, I think when he passed, there was a shift in the musical outlay, and if you look at bands like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, from then on, they were still part of the machine, but they.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't think they would have worked in a music industry that we have now, because the music industry we have now is unrecognizable from the music industry it was. They wouldn't have survived on being a band that would have made it through social media. I don't even know if they would have cut through.
No.
But the thing that social media does now is amplify conspiracies and negativity.
So we'll look at the top 9 conspiracy theories around Cobain's life and death. So the first one is that Courtney Love was involved, and these are all alleged, obviously. One of the most widespread conspiracy theories is that Cobain's wife, Courtney Love, was involved in his death. Some conspiracy theorists believe she had a motive to kill him or have him killed because Cobain was allegedly considering divorcing her, which could have affected their financial situation. Books like Love and Death, The Murder of Kurt Cobain by private investigator Tom Grant and Who Killed Kurt Cobain by Ian Halperin and Max Wallace argue that Cobain was murdered and claim that Love played a role either directly or indirectly. I just don't get it. I don't buy it. I think Cobain, if we look at it cynically, Cobain was worth more to her alive than dead.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if their relationship had come to an end, killing him would have stopped the cash cow. Yeah. If she divorced him, she would have put a stake in California, 50% of his earnings, child support for Francis Bean. The money would have kept flowing in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that conspiracy theory also then bleeds into what we discussed before around how many of the songs that appeared on the whole albums were actually Cobain songs. So there's some argument that Cobain may have been involved in the writing of Live Through This, the 1994 whole album. There's definitely his trademark style across it.
Very much so.
Yeah, not something we'll ever get to the bottom of. The second most popular conspiracy is discrepancies in the suicide note. Cobain's suicide note has been the subject of intense scrutiny. Some theorists claim that the note seems more like a farewell to the music industry rather than a goodbye to life. They argue that only the final lines of the letter, those that explicitly discuss suicide, appear to be in a different handwriting style, suggesting it may have been tampered with or forged. For me, it's grasping at straws, that.
I'd agree. If you're about to pull a trigger and blow your brains out, you're going to be a bit different with your writing style, aren't you?
Yeah, and don't forget, he had a history of mental illness, with mental health issues. He was obviously putting chemicals, recreational or prescription, into his system, and all of those things, plus the extreme stress, can alter the way people's motor skills work. And to say that, hey, somebody else wrote it's just, I kind of understand sometimes why these conspiracy theories come about, because people love somebody and they don't want them to be gone.
Or they can't believe that they've done what they've done and are looking for a reason why that's happened. He can't have just been upset and depressed, and I don't mean upset's too flippant, but depressed and in pain with his back and all these things.
Cobain had a high level of heroin in his system at the time of his death, 3 times the lethal dose according to the toxicology reports. Some believe that after taking such a large amount, Cobain would have been too incapacitated to pull the trigger on a shotgun. This has led conspiracy theorists to suggest that someone else must have fired the gun, possibly after administering the heroin.
I think the heroin goes back to point 2 about the squiffy handwriting in the latter part.
I would agree, yeah.
And I think if he was in that frame of mind, had that much in him, pulling a trigger would have been of no consequence. It just would have happened.
And I think what it doesn't say is how ingested I don't know if that's the right phrase. Was that heroin? Had it just been shot into his system, or had it been in his system for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it just been shot into his system, he was using it as almost like an anesthetic to give him that Dutch courage, then he could well have reached down and pulled the trigger. We haven't seen the shotgun configuration. He could have had a string to a trigger. It could have been anything. And I think just to hang your hat on the fact that, if you have a lot of heroin in your system, you're not capable of doing anything. I think there's a lot of heroin addicts around the world that would go, actually, mate, I can do quite a bit. The next one is a gentleman called Tom Grant. Grant was a private investigator hired by Courtney Love to locate Cobain after his disappearance from rehab just days before his death. He's one of the most vocal proponents of the murder theory. Grant claims that during his investigation, he uncovered inconsistencies and suspicious details about the case that were overlooked by the police. He argues that the investigation was rushed and that Love's behaviour is erratic and manipulative. He maintains that Cobain's death was a homicide and Courtney Love, among others, may have been involved.
Tom Grant one, I that was quite a prevalent one at the time.
Yeah.
I remember that was one of the most spoken about conspiracies. Well, not conspiracies, one of the at the forefront investigations done before the Nick. I think it was before. Yeah, it would be before the Nick Broomfield came out.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people were talking about that Tom Grant investigation. It's big in the music press.
Yeah, but isn't that always on the death of somebody famous that the default conspiracy is somebody else was involved?
Oh, totally.
Logic dictates that Cobain was on his own, unfortunately, and it must have been an awful thing for him to be in that state of mind and to consider that what he was about to do was his only option.
I think what moots all the conspiracy theories was the overdose that happened in Italy.
Yeah.
Before this, that mutes them all. His intent was there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
unless the conspiracy theorists will say, well, yes, his intent was shown, but he didn't do it because they knew that he would probably be looked to do it. No, his intent was there. He wanted out.
So the role of Eldon Hoke, who also had an AKA as El Juice. Wow, that's interesting. Eldon Duke was a musician from the band The Mentors. And he claimed in an interview that Courtney Love had offered him $50,000 to kill Kurt Cobain. Hoke passed a polygraph test regarding the statement, but died under suspicious circumstances just days after making the claim, being hit by a train in what was ruled an accident. This added fuel to the conspiracy theories that Love might have sought to hire someone to kill Cobain.
Yeah, heard that one too.
Yeah, and I think that one can be filed under tinfoil. I think it's common knowledge that passing a polygraph isn't that difficult. And failing a polygraph isn't that difficult. And that a lot of people consider polygraphs to be about as much use as a chocolate teacup.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, a polygraph is only measuring what you believe to be the truth. And there are certain psychological states where you believe you're telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just another one, isn't it? I don't get it personally. The police investigation. Critics of the official ruling argue that the Seattle Police Department's investigation into Cobain's death was flawed. Some claim that the police quickly ruled the death as suicide without conducting a thorough investigation. For example, they did not test Cobain's hands for gunpowder residue, which would have confirmed whether he fired the shotgun or not. So you've got to ask yourself, if you take that conspiracy theory, it says that they just ruled it as a suicide. If we do a little bit of investigation into that, 1994 in the USA, it was about 18,000 gun-assisted suicides. I think the police know the crime scene by now.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? The position of the gun, the position of the body, the position of the wound. I think that one's pretty slim, that one. I don't think there's much choice of that.
I think that's pretty sewn up.
Yeah. The next one is the position of the gun. There are questions about how Cobain could have held the shotgun and shot himself given the length of the gun and his physical position. Some conspiracy theorists argue that it would have been difficult or impossible for Cobain to shoot himself in the manner described in the official investigation, further suggesting that somebody else was involved. The human body, the human will, is an incredible thing when it comes to trying to achieve something it's committed to. Yeah, you know, we've seen Paralympians achieve astounding athletic, successes when we'd go, there's no way you can do that. Somebody in Cobain's state of mind, no. They've got to take into account recoil. They've got to take into account the body falling. Again, not at all. The psychological state of Cobain. Cobain's mental health, particularly his struggles with depression and heroin addiction, was well documented. However, conspiracy theorists often point out that Cobain was reportedly making plans for the future, including projects with Nirvana and buying new equipment, which they argue is inconsistent with someone planning to take their own life.
Absolute codswallop.
Absolute codswallop. Absolute codswallop. The masking, the projection of normality is what protects the ability to commit the act.
Utter rubbish. That miffs me off, that one.
Yeah, because if he had been demonstrating suicidal tendencies, he would have been committed by Courtney Love. It would have happened. He did.
Or people would be looking out. I mean, around this era as well is that Michael Stipe has said in interviews that he was aware something wasn't right.
Yeah.
With Cobain, and they were quite close. Which on the Monster album has a song dedicated to Kurt.
Yeah.
But he was trying to do everything to get Kurt to come along, go with REM for a bit and do stuff there.
Yeah.
Because he was perceptive enough to think something's not right here. And then it happened, and he was like, I just wish I could have done more. And it's like, you did, you tried. And you're a good friend. You did all the right things. So yeah, he was there were already triggers there through those final days to say, oh, he's going to buy new equipment, he's playing for, well, you try. Music was his life, so you try and find some joy and happiness from it. So you do the things that will keep you going. And
a plan on Monday might be taken over by a plan on Tuesday.
Exactly. So yeah, let's move on from point 8.
I think it's dismissive of what he suffered. And the final of the official conspiracies is the media influence and the public perception. Some believe that the media played a role in shaping the narrative of Cobain's death as a suicide, driven by his tortured artist persona and struggles with fame. This has been compounded by documentaries and books such as Soaked in Bleach, which present alternative explanations for his death.
There is the argument, but more so now. We've cottoned onto it now that a deceased artist's catalogue is worth more than when they're alive.
Yeah,
but that's for an artist that started to wane. Whereas now they just go and sell their publishing catalogue to a major corporation. So that's what they do now. But he was at the peak.
Absolute peak.
And so it's like, keep going. You know, there's more worth in that. You can only skin a back catalogue so many ways before it comes absolutely redundant. Via licensing or what have you, or 25th anniversary editions, 30th, you can only do that so much. But if you have a larger catalogue, even if you did 6-7 albums with Nirvana and then went on to a solo career, there's still money being made from that. It would still be gaining. So I see no value in it's a media or corporate interference that's causing that. I think that's BS. If I go back over the conspiracy theories, first one, Courtney Love's alleged involvement. I can see how that's got legs completely.
Yeah.
Discrepancies in the suicide notes, BS.
Yeah.
The level of heroin in the system, your body builds a tolerance to it, so it really isn't relevant.
Yeah.
Tom Grant's investigation, I've read that one so many times, and I think there is a little tinfoil hat in that.
Mm-hmm.
Eldon Hoke, that's the one I've heard bandied about as the most valued because of the circumstances of his death. But that then ties in with number one. So you've got 1 and 5.
It does. 1 and 5 are simpatico, aren't they?
Yeah. Police investigation. Nope. Position of the gun. Nope. Psychological state of Cobain. I dismiss that one and throw it out the window. Media influences, squash that like a bug. So I think 1 and 5, those are the only ones that you can sort of think, okay, I could see how you're getting to that.
But they are the default. They're the default ones, though.
Yeah,
they are the default ones that a spouse has committed the crime.
Yeah, and because his spouse it was and still is on Planet Cuckoo.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a New Yorker not so long ago who swore blind to me that he had been in multiple bars in New York and Los Angeles and spoken to multiple barmen. And had it on good authority that Dave Grohl killed Kurt Cobain because Grohl had been incredibly dismissive of his writing abilities, and that he wasn't going to entertain Dave as a songwriter being part of Nirvana, and that Grohl allegedly did the dirty to release himself to go and form the Foo Fighters. So I think it's evident then that if we look back at Cobain's life and death, that he was a tortured soul. He was an artist of incredible ability, and his end was sad, shocking, too quick, too soon. And the conspiracy theories don't really hold anything up. It'd be really, and this is meant with all respect to the memory of Kurt Cobain, but it'd be great for us if there was one conspiracy theory that held up and you could actually discuss it a bit longer, but I'm kind of glad there isn't.
I'm glad there isn't.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that at some point he'll be allowed to get rest and peace.
Yeah, it's like you say, it was a sad, tragic end to a tortured life in parts. And yeah, the conspiracy theories don't really hold together that well. No. And like I think you've alluded to, it's just fans looking for a reason. The reason is there.
Yeah.
There's no conspiracy.
No.
It's quite a logical join the dots.
Yeah. And I suppose looking past Cobain's death, we have obviously the Foo Fighters, the dozens of collaborations that Dave Grohl's done, which has supported bands like, I don't know,
Queens of Stone
Age, Eagles of Death Metal. There's literally dozens and dozens of bands that Grohl has collaborated with, which all stems from Nirvana, which all stems from Cobain and his upbringing and his aptitude and attitude to life. So, whilst he died and became part of that 27 club, which I don't think it's one of those clubs nobody wants to enter, but all the good ones seem to join. I think we should say thank you to him. We should just look back, tip our hats to him, say, thank you, because you've given us not only a great catalogue of work with Nirvana, but allowed us to continue to celebrate that through lots of other new bands and new music.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. And here we close the case of the death of Kurt Cobain. We'll see you next month with case number 2. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.